Hello everyone, my name is Stephanie Boozer and I'm with CUGC HQ, and I am so happy to welcome you to today's user share on Citrix Cloud Workspace Solutions in Microsoft Azure. This is a big topic and I know a lot of you are excited to get into it, so just want to cover a couple of housekeeping details really quickly. Just a reminder to type your questions into the question panel of the GoToWebinar control panel off to your right. We'll keep an eye on those. Some of them we'll ask during the presentation and some of them we'll ask at the end, and whatever we don't get to today and the time we have allotted, I'll try to get these guys to write up answers in a blog post on my CUGC for us. Also, let you know this presentation is being recorded and you will receive a link to the recording tomorrow, and that email will come directly from GoToWebinar, so be sure to check your spam folder if you don't see it right away. And with that, I think I will turn things over to our presenters. These guys are new Citrix CTAs. They've been extremely helpful and busy in the CUGC community with blogs and webinars and out in the forums, and I'm so glad they've come together today to put on this webinar for you guys. So Christian, I'll hand things over to you first to get us started and introduce yourself.
Thank you, Stephanie, and thank you for the nice introduction. I couldn't be better than you did. So who am I? I'm Christiaan Brinkhoff, and I'm working as a senior workspace consultant for Dietron. Dietron is one of the largest companies specialized in enterprise Citrix products for the larger companies in the Netherlands. I'm also being awarded as a Microsoft MVP since last week, so I'm pretty honored to be part of that family right now. And as Stephanie already mentioned, I'm also a Citrix CTA, so also very honored to be part of that great group of community people. And I'm also a CUGC networking stick leader and a VMware review expert. And I'm also blogging on my blog site at christiaanbrinkhoff.com every month, several times. So yeah, if you never seen it, please check it out. And I'm also active on my social channel at Brinkhoff_C at Twitter. So if you aren't connected yet, please do it now. So I now hand it over to Carson.
Thank you, Christian and Stephanie. I'm Carson Bruns. I'm IT architect at Sapago. We always work with enterprise customers, and I'm designing a lot of NetScaler, XenMobile stuff, and also NetScaler based on Azure. And I'm nominated as Citrix CTA as well, and I'm also networking SIG leader. Sometimes I blog on our company side, and my Twitter handle is Carsten Bruns. You can follow me right now. With this, I would like to hand it over to Gareth.
Hi everyone. Just to add a little more about myself, I'm also a CTA. I'm an advocate of sharing knowledge and implementing best practices and keeping things simple. I can be found on Twitter under Citzen, highlighting the latest Citrix information for the community, and I've contributed to some expert insights for the Citrix user group community also. I've been working for a platinum partner called Ultima for the past 8 years, and my focus is in the managed services area and being proactive. With that, over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Gareth. So on our agenda for today, we're first going to talk a little bit about Microsoft Azure, what it is, and what are the numbers right now. Then we walk through the Citrix Cloud Workspace Solutions that are available at this moment. Then Carson is taking you down on the runway of the Citrix NetScaler possibilities with the Citrix Cloud Workspaces combined. And then Gareth is talking about Citrix Smart Tools. Then we talk about platform improvements, tips and tricks and best practices. Then we end up with a Did You Know section, which you also know from my bloggings. And at the end, when we have some room left, we can also discuss some questions which you can type in the question chat mark text field, and at the end we have also a competition quiz. So pay attention and yeah, win actually a great prize at the end. So let's start with the first slide. Behind every cloud is another cloud. A great quote from Judy Gareth, which exactly symbolizes how Citrix Cloud and Microsoft Azure is collaborating with each other to come to one workspace solution. As you probably know, XenApp Essentials and XenDesktop Essentials need to be purchased from the Azure Marketplace, but on the background you will be redirected to the Citrix Cloud, and then yeah, you can do the the setup in the Citrix Cloud, and then connect your resources to the Microsoft Azure Cloud. So two clouds combined together to deliver one workspace solution. So this quote definitely reminds you how the setup is going on. But yeah, some people really don't get it and think that computers can fly when they are in the cloud. So I don't know that's the right answer for that. So that eventually looks like this then. But yeah, it's definitely not that. It's just someone else's computer. So Microsoft Azure. Microsoft Azure is the public cloud platform of Microsoft, as you probably know, with almost 100 plus data centers around the globe at this moment. It belongs to the top 3 networks worldwide. They are joining 120,000 customers each month to the platform. It's twice as big as AWS data centers, and it's 6 times bigger than Google data center platform. So yeah, pretty reliable numbers if you ask me. So you are always aware of a stable and reliable connection and environment. So Citrix Digital Workspaces in Azure, as mentioned in the quote slide, that XenApp Essentials and XenDesktop Essentials are currently available to deliver a cloud workspace solution from inside the Azure Cloud. But there's another one, and that's the XenApp and XenDesktop Service, which is the platinum capabilities cloud version of XenDesktop and XenApp, as you know as on-premise. And besides that, Citrix Cloud also delivers a remote connection, which is the NetScaler Gateway as a Service solution, which is built in all the 3 workspace solutions. This, you doesn't have to buy another license to get remote access to your environment. More in depth on a NetScaler Gateway as a Service later on in this presentation. Citrix is using a cloud-first release strategy since Synergy, which results in a cloud-first release. So when Citrix is innovating new features in XenDesktop, for example, they first will be in the Citrix Cloud, then go into the current release for on-premise, and then hand over to the long-time service release. And it's all about simplicity, so everything is built very simple to maintain. So no more problems with environments that are unmanageable at some several point of time. And also a big advantage of the Citrix Digital Workspace is that you can take care of the flexibility of Microsoft Azure, so you can instantly decreasing or increasing your infrastructure as a service resources. For example, when your company is growing, you need to have more space on your XenApp environment for more FTEs. You can do that instantly, and also downgrade if you need that, which is OPEX cost, which means that you pay what you use monthly. So every month you get a bill of the things that you're using in Azure, and when you are shutting it down, the bill will be lower. And the same counts for the essential services. So when you buy XenApp or XenDesktop Essentials in the marketplace, the billing or the purchase of the service, the cost of the services will be also on the same bill. So IT managers would love that if you ask me. So how does that look in a more comparison sheet? So on the left side we have the XenApp Essentials, in the middle the XenDesktop Essentials, and the right side the Service. And I already marked the most important differences in black text, fat text. And the first that I would like to remind you of is that XenApp Essential is only possible for Windows Server 2012 R2 and 2016 as a public application method. So you cannot publish full desktops. So when you are transforming your on-premise environment to XenApp Essentials, you have to, you need to be aware that you only can use published applications for that. If you want to, use full desktops, you can use the XenDesktop Essentials, but that's only limited for Windows 10, so only VDI is possible there. But when you want to combine both of them, you rather can go for XenApp and XenDesktop Service, which can both Windows 10 and also Windows Server 2012 and 2016. So other huge differences is that XenApp Essentials is now also possible with the new Citrix Workspace experience, Citrix Workspace Service. Also more later on that topic. And with the XenApp Essentials, you have also limited smart skill capabilities, and you have only the possibility to use NetScaler Gateway as a service. And with the XenDesktop Essentials and the service, you can also use your own NetScaler in Microsoft Azure, and also more about that later on. And also a huge feature difference is the full platinum capabilities, which you have with the service. So you can use Citrix Workspace Environment Management, self-service password reset, and the Citrix application labeling software, for example. So that's one of the biggest advantages of the service. So we also have a question for you guys, which we will launch in a poll section right now. So the question is, do you already use or implement one of the following Citrix Cloud Workspaces at your customers? So I'm launching it right now. So if you want to answer them. Okay. 50% is voting. 60. I see a lot of XenApp and XenDesktop Service going on at this moment. A little bit XenDesktop Essentials, but most of you guys using Citrix on premises. Okay, that's something that needs to be changed, but that's the future for. So now I have a follow-up question, and that's, this one would say, why didn't you adopt your workspace solution to the cloud? What is the reason for that? Okay, that is kind of leveling. I see that the no cloud strategy is winning at this moment. Cost is now leveling. Okay, interesting. So cost and no cloud strategy is almost at the same level. Compliance is at the end, and on the third is don't know enough about workspaces. Okay, interesting. We can discuss it at the quote question and answer slides at the end. So just going on to the slides. So how does the workspace solutions look in a more console way? On the left side you have the XenApp Essentials console, where you can follow some simple steps, some simplified steps to implement and deploy the environment in Azure. So pretty simple. I also have a demo of this later on, so stay tuned for that. And on the right side you have the HTML5 receiver version of Citrix Studio. So that's the way how you need to configure your XenDesktop Essentials and your XenApp and XenDesktop Service environment. So that's slightly the same as your on-premise environment, but then just in the cloud. So Citrix is maintaining and taking care of your studio and your database environment for that. So Azure Availability Set, or also known as the High Availability Sets, which can or has to be used in Microsoft Azure to provide and to maintain your continuity of your environment. So yeah, one nice example is the Citrix Cloud Connectors. That's the way how you want to operate with Citrix Cloud and Azure, more in the later slide, but you want to place them in a two load balancing way to maintain your continuity. So then you need to configure an Azure Availability Set, which is split in two parts. You have a file domain and an update domain, and the file domain is simply meaning that file domain number 1 is WAC number 1 in the Azure data center, and file domain number 2 is WAC number 2 in the same data center. So when you have a power outage or something like that, you ensure the continuity of your server by placing them in another WAC of servers. So the other thing is the update domains, which is slightly the same, but then for updates. So you place your machine in batch number 1, and update domain 2 is batch number 2. So when Microsoft is forcing some updates to your infrastructure as a service, just to provide more security or to vulnerabilities or ransomware leakages, something like that, it could be happen that Microsoft is forcing updates. So that's one of the reasons to use Azure Availability Sets to ensure your continuity of your Citrix Cloud connectors environment. And that's not the only thing. You can also do it for the NetScalers, for example, when you're pointing that environment also in infrastructure as a service. I also want to note is that the availability set needs to be configured at the creation process of the virtual machines in Microsoft Azure. So be aware of that. You cannot change that afterwards. So I already mentioned a little bit, but Citrix Cloud Connectors, or also known the Edge servers or the proxy servers, are the only way to operate, to communicate between the Citrix Cloud and the Microsoft Azure Cloud. All the connections through the two clouds are going to the Citrix Cloud Connectors. That's the reason why it's so important to place both servers in the availability set. And all the connections are going over then, secure and sure SSL connection. So you don't have to think that someone is sniffing your traffic, for example. Another option for the XenDesktop Essentials and the service is to use a known storefront or a NetScaler in infrastructure as a service. And when you are choosing to do that, you have to point the delivery controller settings of your storefront server to the Citrix Cloud Connector. And the same counts for the STA service in NetScaler. You have to point it to the fully qualified domain and name of the Citrix Cloud Connector servers. So be aware of that. So now I would like to hand it over to Carson, who's going to talk about NetScaler.
Yeah, so let's talk about how we can access our Citrix infrastructure, which is hosted on Azure. And there are some different possibilities I'd like to show you in the next slide. So we have got at least 3 or maybe 4 options we can use to connect to our services which are hosted on Azure. So the first one is to use NetScaler Gateway as a service, which is provided to you by Citrix Cloud, and you don't care about any infrastructure, you don't care about your updates and stuff like this. You only have to click on it, say, yeah, I want to use it, and then you can go. The next thing is NetScaler Gateway or NetScaler as application delivery controller, used as a infrastructure as a service. So you will bring your own NetScaler to the cloud to use it in Azure, as your own gateway or your own application delivery controller, or as Christian already mentioned, you can use your NetScaler on premises as well. Next slide, please. I've made a short comparison between NetScaler Gateway as a Service and NetScaler in Azure if you use infrastructure as a service and you bring your own license. First of all, you need to know that NetScaler Gateway as a Service is only a ICA or HDX proxy. So this means there's no load balancing available for this service. You can only use it as gateway. The setup is really easy, and it will work for Azure and also for AWS. The license will be included in your whole service infrastructure, so you only have to pay it per month. But there are some limitations I want to show you, like there's no secondary authentication. So if you want to use your radio system for a multi-factor authentication, there's no way at this time. At this time, there's also no EDT or some customizations which you can do on your NetScaler. So if you want to customize your NetScaler or you want to use multi-factor authentication or maybe the application delivery controller features, you have to bring your own license, or you use NetScaler in Azure with your subscription in Azure. But then you have to manage it on your own. So if you want to bring your own license, it's really easy. You can use your on-prem licenses and just bring it to the NetScaler and license it like you know, or you do it in the subscription of Azure. So if you want to deploy a NetScaler, you can say, okay, I want to have the license from Microsoft, and Microsoft will pay the fee to Citrix. For this, you can also use the NetScaler Gateway license if you want to do some customizations, some themes or something like this, but then you will not get the whole NetScaler feature set. Next slide. So NetScaler Gateway as a Service is available through different entry points. So some of you know that Citrix Cloud is only available in 2 different locations. One is in Europe and one is in US. And with NetScaler Gateway, we have several entry points, which means that you can have an entry point which is in the nearest location of your users, so that you have a lower latency to your NetScaler. And this is what I want to say with this slide. You can switch to the next slide, please. So at all, you have to choose if you want to use NetScaler Gateway as a service or NetScaler in Azure. If you use XenApp and XenDesktop Essentials, there's no possibility to use your own NetScaler. It will always be NetScaler Gateway as a service with all its limitations. This is very important to know if you decide to use XenApp or XenDesktop Essentials. If you want to use Citrix Cloud, like XenApp or XenDesktop Services, and XenApp or XenDesktop hosted on Azure, you have the possibility to choose which one you want to use. The most, what I've seen in the field is that users use the NetScaler Gateway or NetScaler ADC as infrastructure and as a service on Azure. So because of the customizations which I mentioned, which is really good for the customers for user experience, they use not NetScaler Gateway as a service, but you can use it if you want to have it a little bit more as a simplified service. So next slide, please. If you decide to deploy your NetScaler in Azure as a bring your own license or subscription-based license, you have some things to know if you want to deploy it. So there's one important thing. There's a single IP mode, which means you have to do a lot of port address translations, and you have to use a lot of nutting rules, and you have to use Azure load balance and stuff like this, and it is really complicated, and therefore please don't do it. Next slide, please. So just forget this and do it in another way, which I will show you right now. Next. So there is also a multi-IP mode on NetScaler, which means you have more than one IP address, so you can have an IP address for your NetScaler IP address, for your virtual service, and also for your subnet IP address. And therefore, you need to create a new virtual machine, and you have to configure the network interface with IP configurations. So one IP configuration is for the NetScaler IP address, one IP configuration is for the virtual server, and one IP configuration is for the subnet IP address. You have to configure these settings because Azure is based on DHCP, and if you don't configure your IP addresses on the NetScaler, it might end in an IP address conflict. But there is another solution which I'd like to show you on the next slide. You can also separate your traffic. So if you decide that you have front-end traffic and back-end traffic and maybe management traffic, you can use multiple network interfaces on your NetScaler with different IP address sets. So you can decide whatever you want for your security. If you want to separate the traffic from data traffic and management traffic, you have to use more than one network interface on your NetScaler. Next slide.
Thank you, Carsten. So now we hand it over to the architecture and demo section of this presentation. So, but for us, we also share a fun picture with you. So, according to this, the planet Earth was once populated by humans, and in 2012 they moved out to the cloud. So eventually we all end up like this. So let's switch over to the architecture of XenApp Essentials. So first, before we start, we have to have a Microsoft Azure environment and tenant with a storage account and a research group. Then we need to build up a virtual network in Microsoft Azure Infrastructure as a Service. Then we create the availability set before we starting the base image, the master image of our XenApp environment. Then we purchase the XenApp Essentials service in the Azure Marketplace, which switch over to the Citrix Cloud. And from the Citrix Cloud, we connect with a secure SSL connection to the Microsoft Azure environment with a global full administrator account. Then the automation process is installing the Citrix Cloud connectors, also known as the Edge servers. And then we need to scale our environment with the Citrix Smart Tools, the limited version actually, but we can enter in schedule-based scaling, and Gareth is talking more about this later on. And then we put out the numbers of our XenApp workers. Then the director is being prepared and deployed in the Citrix Cloud. Then the user needs to be assigned to the published applications. Then the storefront environment is being prepared, but since 3 weeks, it's replaced by the workspace service, which we are going to discuss also in a later slide, and the NetScaler Gateway service, which is only usable in XenApp Essentials, so that's one of the limitations. And then you can actually log on to your Citrix Cloud Workspace environment. So in the next slide, I would like to walk you through all these physical steps in Microsoft Azure. So let's start. So I already prepared a VDA master image, so I switch over to the XenApp Essentials purchase from the marketplace. Push create, and I give them a resource name for the XenApp Essentials service, which can be random, a subscription for Azure. I select a resource group to place our XenApp Essentials resource, and now we switch over to the Citrix Cloud, just as the quote slide. Now the connection is going through. And when you haven't got the Citrix Cloud account, you can make it instantly. Now we can select the RDS licenses if we use our own licenses, or we purchase the $6 version per user per month. And when we are finished, we can put the agree and the validate button, and everything is deploying on the background. It's pretty fast, but now the Citrix XenApp Essentials environment is now being prepared on the Citrix Cloud. That can take up up to 4 hours, but I see it more in a 1-2 hour time in my history. So now we need to create a catalog, which can be random in name. Then we need to connect from the Citrix Cloud to our Azure environment with a full or global administrator account. So now we need to switch and click on the subscription and the resource group to place our XenApp workers in. Select the virtual network and the subnet. Now we need to enter the fully qualified domain name of our domain environment, the organizational unit to place our computer accounts in, and a service account name to provide the domain join. And now comes the important part to select the master image which we created in the infrastructure service environment. You can also use an prepared image by Citrix, but we go in, to do that we have prepared an image with Microsoft Office 2016. So now we can enter in a name for the XenApp Essentials image, and here's the smart scale and the scaling part of the setup. So here can we select the sizing of the server, which eventually is resulting in login fees and session count numbers. And here we can select the smart skill settings, where we can provide the schedule-based scaling to lower up our environment in peak times and downscale it after working hours. And when we are finished, we can start the automated deployment. So this is all automated, so it's it's now done in the Azure environment, so you can switch during this process to your Microsoft Azure Infrastructure as a Service environment, and you can see that the Edge servers, the Citrix Cloud servers, are first being created to provide the connection between the Citrix Cloud to the Microsoft Azure Cloud. So these are actually very cheap machines, which are additionally charged to your Azure subscription. And when everything is finished, after 1 hour, then we can discover the start menu and publish our application. So as being said, I used Office 2016 for this demo, and I created an Active Directory group for providing the access to the users. So I'm searching for the Active Directory group. And then we are finished, and we get our storefront or workspace service URL to provide the connection to our Citrix workspace environment. So pretty simple if you ask me. So how does that look compared to the other two workspace services? So I can pretty simple about that. As you could see in the management console, it's fully a studio which is provided to the HTML HTML5 connection. So you have to do that all by yourself. So you have to install your own Citrix Cloud connectors manually. You have to install and configure the host connection manually, and also the machine catalog and the delivery group. So how does that all look like? So first you need to enter the Citrix Cloud service, which can be directly from the marketplace if you choose for XenDesktop Essentials, and for the service you have to go directly to the Citrix Cloud. Then you install the Citrix Cloud connectors. Then you prepare the base image, the master image, which can be Windows 10, for example. Then you install the VDA agent on the master image. Afterwards, you start up the machine catalog, or first the host connection, and then the machine catalog, where you put in the VDA image to provide the connection for the delivery groups, and then you can enter in the choice to use a cloud host storefront or your own storefront in infrastructure as a service, and the same counts for the NetScaler service. When you want to choose bring your own NetScaler and infrastructure as a service in Azure, you can choose disable and hand it over to the NetScaler in Azure. And then you get the URL of the hosted storefront or the NetScaler gateway, and you can actually connect to your Citrix Cloud Workspace. So a little bit more steps, but also pretty easy if you have on-premise knowledge of your of the Citrix products. So, and with this, I would like to hand it over to Gareth to talk about Citrix Smart Tools. So first, another joke. Working in IT is like being married. When it's perfect, there's no thanks. When it goes wrong, boy, you're in shit. I don't know if you guys feel the same, but I feel sometimes like this. So, and now I would like to hand it over to Gareth.
Cheers, Christian. That leads me nicely on to my next subject. So obviously here we've got a great set of tools, but these are not the tools I'm actually looking for. So next slide, Christian. What really is Smart Tools about? So it's basically a suite of products obtained from the Citrix Cloud portal, which is on citrix.cloud.com. And it can help you as an administrator on your journey towards XenApp 7, and then to further enhance your workspace experience. So it's going to give you the ability to manage, maintain, gain insights, and control your Citrix environment. So as a consultant, you get a bunch of operational efficiencies and diagnostics at your disposal. So the first tool, Smart Migrate, that basically allows you to migrate your apps and your policies from your XenApp 6 environment to your XenApp 7 cloud-ready environment. So you can easily migrate your apps and policy settings across, including your icons, your permissions, and it's all done using a simple wizard. Why would you use it? It saves you time when it comes to migrations. Smart Check, the next tool. So this will basically this is a proactive health analysis tool which will investigate your XenApp 7 site health. So it will provide you detailed analysis and patching that you may need. So it gives you deep insights into your site's health. It's proactive health checking, so that's important. That's why you should use it. Smart Scale, so this lets you effectively scale up or down your environment as required, and it's to help you save on resources and costs. So this tool will help you with your monthly subscriptions. And lastly, we've got Smart Build. So this is all about automating your deployments. So here you can provision your environment from a set of predefined blueprints. This tool allows you to quickly set up a proof of concept for your customers and create alerts. But for this webinar, I'm going to primarily focus on Smart Check and Smart Scale and show how they help you on your Citrix workspace journey. Next slide. So, a little fact for you, it's estimated that out of 100,000 support calls logged with Citrix, that 60% can be avoided by proactive maintenance. So it's always difficult keeping up with best practices, patching, updates, knowing what's going on in your environment. Plus, this is really time consuming to you. So working personally in a managed services environment, I'm constantly trying ways I can turn reactive support into proactive. And now I've got another string to my bow. So this leads us on to Smart Check. So this is becoming it's basically becoming a troubleshooting epicenter for your XenApp 7 workspace solutions. So it can be accessed again via the Citrix Cloud portal, and it's for 7.6 versions and above. So for your on-premises or infrastructure as a service solutions, you install an agent on your delivery controllers in your site, and that's to be analyzed over outbound port 443 by a Smart Check analysis engine. So you've also got to be on PowerShell 3 at minimum, but with the Cloud Workspace Solutions, you don't need an agent for the controller environment because this site will be recognized automatically within Smart Check, and you can identify the site as it will be named Cloud XT Site. So to effectively analyze your infrastructure, such as your VDAs, you'll need an account that's part of domain users group in Active Directory. You'll need full administrator role for the sites in Citrix Studio. So we can run checks at the moment for your VDAs, your flex management architecture services, your delivery groups, and your LTSR, long-term service release infrastructure compliance. There are other tools that check your environments that Citrix supplies, most notably Citrix Insight Services, formerly known as TAS, and I'll mention a bit more on this front later. Smart Check will also provide you notifications delivered straight to your inbox, which allows you to gain proactive insights into your environment's health. So now you can receive diagnostic information on your site's health, be proactive before your users get to destroy you in the morning. I'm using this tool now for my customers to highlight issues and provide guidance, and I'm personally finding it really useful. In my opinion, great move by Citrix. Next slide, Christian. So Smart Check will discover your XenApp and XenDesktop configured sites. It's also going to sync site data once you've added additional sites. You also get on-demand and scheduled checks. So this provides you with flexible control to run your performance checks when you want. And you also get health reports. And as already mentioned, email notifications informing you directly of issues. So it's comprised of 4 building blocks. Next. So first off, you've got a check. So this is nothing more than a label of identification of the check that is actually being run. Next. The next thing you've got, it's a collector. So this is a piece of software that collects diagnostics from your system. Next. Then you've got an analyzer, which is a Citrix Insight Services system. So this complies with security and data privacy laws. It's protected by data governance and security. And lastly, we've got alerts. So this is basically an actionable information provided by the aforementioned Citrix Insight Services insights. Next slide. So when I mention the word security, I can feel the excitement buzzing in the air. So I'm going to throw a little in and discuss a bit more about these building blocks of Smart Check. So what actually happens when you perform a check? So when you click Perform Check, within the Smart Check tool, a blueprint is actually deployed on your target machine, which is basically a collection of steps. Blueprint also has approved Citrix tools attached within it. All this interaction, it happens over authenticated SSL. The collector agent will start running on your delivery controllers, and it sends information back to the analyzer. No organization names and no names of end users or administrators are actually sent. So the analyzer will not send any customer-specific information to the back end. If for any reason the analyzer does get compromised, your back end will still stay secure. The alerts that are raised as a result of analysis have two states. They're either up or they're either down. Only the Citrix Cloud admins will receive proactive email notifications, which are depersonalized. So in order to view the reports generated by the alerts and the emails, you're forced to actually log back into the Citrix Cloud, and this is more secure than using the old method of CIS, Citrix Insight Services. The secure agent, it gets rigorously tested, and it's subject to regular compliance and legal tests. Next slide. So most of us are now used to running Citrix Scout for your manual diagnostic uploads to Citrix Insight Services, formerly known as CTAs. So Citrix Scout Diagnostics, since 7.14, they've been significantly overhauled. It's a lot more secure, it performs quicker, and you can upload from an unlimited number of machines. It also enumerates a lot faster now, which is good. You're probably wondering what this has got to do with what I'm talking about, but you can now upload this diagnostic information into Smart Check. So this will analyze all your gathered data. So even without any agent on your controllers, you are still able to analyze your diagnostics using Smart Tools. So this is still very useful for your infrastructure as a service and on-premises workloads. Next slide. So in addition to what I've just spoken about, we can further analyze our Citrix Cloud Workspace environments utilizing Call Home. So in my opinion, this is one of those very useful but overlooked features. So Call Home, it's a program that allows the collection of even more diagnostic data based on certain events or conditions in your environment. So it runs as a background service under the Citrix telemetry service and uses a technology called always-on tracing. This diagnostic information can be saved locally or directly uploaded to Citrix Insight Services, which is now part of Smart Check. Call Home utilizing always-on tracing, it will compress your data, so it will always maintain a small footprint, and it will have a maximum size of 20 meg. So in your Citrix Workspace environments, if your VDAs have registration failures, problems launching an app or desktop, the always-on tracing can be configured to automatically upload your diagnostics to your Smart Check portal. So you can also manually run these on demand, or you can change your scheduled uploads. So at the moment, the infrastructure that's capable of this Call Home diagnostics, you've got your VDAs on premises and in the cloud, you've got your delivery controllers and storefront on premises and as an infrastructure as a service. Next slide. So Call Home provides the following commandlets to upload diagnostic information. So they're shown in the slide. So using these commands, you can log into Citrix Cloud Workspace and perform your checks. Citrix is now moving all the CIS features over into Smart Check. So the Citrix Cloud Workspace is really providing you with the ability to maintain and control various Citrix environments with these sets of tools. Next slide. So my fave feature that's been added from a managed service perspective, I'm super excited by this, is the custom checks. So you've got Smart Checks can now run your own custom check blueprints. So this Citrix have been working closely with fellow CTP legend Carl Webster to achieve this goal. So the idea is basically to create your own checks via Smart Build and you add them to Smart Check. So no doubt the community will be adding custom check blueprints over time for your public use. So I think you used to be allowed up to 5 additional custom checks, but this is now increased to 500 as of recently. So from a security stance, if checks are added to the public stores, they'll be subject to Citrix compliance. However, you can run your own that are not subject to Citrix's regulations and compliance. Custom checks extend to storefronts, provisioning services, and Citrix license server machines in your site. So you can also schedule these and target specific machines that you want the diagnostics to run on. So as mentioned, you get them from the blueprint catalog within the Citrix Cloud. You simply just add your check from the catalog into Smart Check. This will appear in the Perform Check Options menu, which I'll highlight in a bit in my demo. So some of the examples of these custom checks are, you've got storefront certificate checks, you've got the Citrix Optimizer checks, you've got delivery controller checks, and now you've got the VDA Health Assistance, which is a very useful tool. And no doubt more will be added over time. Next slide. So here is a demo. This is what Smart Check looks like.
Gareth, I see that the demo is not starting at this moment.
Okay.
So we can put them at the end and the recording section of the presentation.
Live TV.
Yeah, so you switch over to the other slide then. Okay.
No worries. Right, so the next tool I'm going to talk about is Smart Scale. So this basically launched at Synergy, I think it was last year. Why would you use this tool? It's basically designed to manage your Citrix workloads in public clouds. So one of the challenges we now face is that public cloud costs, they can be sky high. So usually customers who run the workloads in public clouds, they want to power down the servers, they want to save on the monthly subscription rates. So the idea behind it, it's to help you pay for what you need on demand and to reduce resources that are now not required. So you're now controlling your virtual machine instances costs in public clouds by turning off and, importantly, deallocating workloads when they're not required. So let's not forget the on-premises value also, because it's also supported by on-send server workloads. So you can use those, you can reduce the load on your virtual machines, delivering virtual apps and desktops on your physical hardware, and you can save on hardware degradation and less power and cooling consumption costs. So it has a benefit in the cloud and on premises. It's enabled via the Citrix Cloud in Smart Tools by delivery group. So you enable Smart Scale to deliver its power and capacity management per delivery group. You simply use a toggle switch and it will be enabled. So it will also calculate the estimated savings for your virtual machine instances in the delivery group registered with the site. It estimates your savings based on the per machine costs and utilization history. The important thing to note here is the word registered. So you've got 3 scalability options. They are schedule-based, load-based scaling, and load and schedule-based scaling. Next slide, Christian. So a bit more on the scale metrics. The scale metrics basically determine how load among the machines in your delivery group are managed. Based on the metric you're selecting, users requesting sessions are directed to the machine that's best suited to handle their request. So schedule-based scaling, it powers on a minimum number of machines. during scheduled time periods to effectively optimize the user experience at the start of peak hours. The load index, that will determine how likely a machine is to receive connections. This metric is calculated using Citrix Load Management policy settings. It's configured for concurrent logon, session, CPU, disk, and memory use. You've also got load-based scaling. This helps you provide enough machines to handle the current demand for sessions. And lastly, you've got the session count. So this enables you to set a maximum number of sessions that are allowed on each machine in the delivery group. So when the maximum number of sessions is reached, Smart Scale directs new session requests to other machines in the delivery group. Next slide, Christian. So again, I'll highlight that Smart Scale works only with the existing registered machines in the delivery group. So a machine catalog associated with the delivery group must have enough machines to power on and off as demand increases and decreases. Smart Tools does not provision more machines for you. So installing the site agent, this isn't required if you're using the XenApp and XenDesktop service for your site. Smart Tools automatically discovers your site and coordinates the scaling actions directly through the XenApp and XenDesktop service and also other workspace solutions. It's supported on Amazon, Microsoft Azure, and, as mentioned, Citrix End Server for on-premises. So it also supports server OS machines that deliver published applications or hosted shared desktops to users. It's also got VDI desktop support. So Smart Scale supports machines hosting the following types of desktops. It supports persistent, dedicated desktops, and pooled and random desktops. So important to note, to use Smart Scale with VDI desktop machines, you have to disable the XenApp and XenDesktop's built-in power management functions, and I've shown this, how to do this in the bottom of the slide. Next. So Smart Scale supports power managing sites using XenApp and XenDesktop, the XenApp and XenDesktop Service, XenApp Essentials, and XenDesktop Essentials. I believe for XenApp Essentials, it has less functionality. So power management for a single site using one of these services is supported as follows. You get up to 2,000 VDAs or VDIs per site that can be power managed. You can have up to 120 delivery groups that can be power managed, and up to 1,000 VDAs or VDIs per delivery group that can be power managed. Next slide. So this is quite new to the press. So now you get these additional features with Smart Scale. You get power management across machine catalogs. So this feature addresses a key high availability use case where customers often have catalogs in different availability zones or Azure locations. So by balancing out the number of powered on machines across your catalogs, Smart Scale enables sites to remain functional, even if one of the catalogs becomes inaccessible. You've also got the check machine registration status. So again, Smart Scale won't factor in an unregistered VDA when it calculates capacity. Why? Well, users can't connect to unregistered machines. So even if the machines are powered on, you need to investigate why your machines are unregistered. So a little tip, if you do have unregistered machines, use the custom VDA health check, and that which is now part of Smart Check. Smart Scale support for scheduling minimum percentage of machines. So this basically allows you to specify a percentage of machines in your delivery group to keep powered on. So as the number of machines in your delivery group changes, Smart Scale increases or decreases the minimum number automatically. Then lastly, you've got the delay powering off machines. So typically administrators will schedule machines to be powered off outside normal working hours. If a user accesses their desktop using Citrix Receiver during that time, the machine hosting the desktop powers on, but SmartScale immediately powers it off again. So because SmartScale powers off the machine before a session can be established, users can't access the desktops outside of working hours. So the delay powering off machines has come in because you can now control how long SmartScale must wait before powering off machines. So this allows users enough time to establish sessions when actually required. Next slide. So a bit about the entitlements. Citrix Smart Tools is free. So it's available to all Citrix customers with an active Citrix Cloud subscription, software maintenance, or customer select support contract. So Citrix partners out there, you can also use these tools. SmartScale is only available for XenApp and XenDesktop Platinum customers, but remember that your workspaces are Platinum enriched. So the chances are you've already got the ability to use SmartScale and SmartCheck. So if you're not, I expect you will be soon enough. Over to you, Christian.
Thank you, Gareth, for the great explanation on Smart Tools. We will share the demo with you guys later on at the recording section. So, and now we hand over to the platform improvements that has been going on to the past 2 months. But before we do that, also another fun picture with our commands here. I'm pretty sure there's no need to monitor the transition of our workload to the cloud. That is not how I see it, but it's kind of fun to see how some people think about that. So one improvement that I already mentioned in some previous slides is the Citrix Workspace experience that is available for the XenApp Essentials service right now. It's a limited version, but it makes it possible to customize the complete web interface. So you can change the color of the upper menu. You can put in the logos for your company. So that's definitely one big advantage that wasn't available before. Before you only had to deal with the normal pictures and layout. So that's one big plus. Citrix is doing a lot of evolvements on the cloud platform, as you can see. So the next one that is coming up is Multifactor Authentication. So please stay tuned for that. And another thing that is now available is that you can change your URL. So normally you get an organization.cloud.com URL provided, and now you can also change that. So when your company is changing from name or something that, for example, you can change it now instantly. Another great improvement is Azure AD support. So you can now connect your XenApp and Essentials environment to your Azure AD subscription in Microsoft Azure, and then provide authentication based on Azure AD's username. So without any need to configure more than only the connection to the Azure subscription, the Azure AD subscription. So how does that look like? You switch to the Identity and Access Management menu in the Citrix Cloud. Then you switch over to the Azure AD authentication screen where you enter in the full administrator credentials, and then you get access to your Citrix Cloud workspace with your Azure AD credentials. So big plus, but you still need to join your service to the domain. So that's the other thing that is available, which is another improvement, but you can use Azure Active Directory Domain Service, which is a service of Azure that is a multi-tenant piece of Active Directory. So you take away all the configuration items and schema parts of Azure of Active Directory on-premise and Azure, as you are familiar with in your on-premise environment, and then hosted in the cloud. So how does that look like in a comparison sheet with the normal Active Directory that you are familiar with in the on-premise environment and the Azure Active Directory domain services? You can do both domain join, but the Azure Active Directory domain services has some limitations on the schema, so you cannot create custom attributes, for example. But you can provide domain join. So when you are putting a customer to the cloud, for example, with XenApp Essentials, and you want to spare out Azure resource cost on the domain controller, for example, you can also choose Azure Active Directory domain services, which is very low in cost. So take a look at that when a company doesn't need to have a schema, custom schema for their applications or for an on-premise exchange, for example. Then you definitely have to take a look at the Azure Active Directory domain service. So now we hand over to the tips and tricks and best practice section of this presentation. And before we do that, also a fun picture about cloud computing. Before it was mainstream, and it isn't actually mainstream right now, but it sounds quite fun. So now we switch over to Carson again to talk about more about NetScaler.
Yeah, let's talk a little bit about NetScaler and why I think global server load balancing will be the best choice for your Azure deployment if you use NetScaler. And you will use NetScaler because you need access to your Citrix environment. So one important thing, if you use GSLB, you can have GSLB between data centers. For example, between different resource locations, like you have one Azure data center running in Dublin and one is running in Amsterdam. You can easily connect them with global server load balancing and use something like HDX optimal routing or something like this with global server load balancing to connect different data centers or to connect your on-prem data center with Azure. Global server load balancing will also be a good choice if you choose Azure Site Recovery, which we covered in our last webinar, but this is not my topic right now. You can also use global server load balancing to scale out your NetScaler environment, which means if you have more than 1,000, 2,000 users running on your virtual machines, you need more than one NetScaler, and it is easy to use global server load balancing to give all of them access to your environment. And one important thing for me is use global server load balancing instead of NetScaler high availability. High availability will be available on Azure for NetScaler, but it is not useful, I think, because it costs a lot of money for having a second appliance which is passive. So if you use global server load balancing, both NetScaler will be active and can handle all the user sessions. For this, you can also use Azure Load Balancer instead of global server load balancing, but I think Azure Load Balancer is not that good in metrics and configurations. So I prefer global server load balancing because you're already running a NetScaler in Azure, so you just need to configure it. How it works, we'll see on the next slide. So global server load balancing is depending on 3 different components. One is ADNS, so you need an ADNS service running on your NetScaler. You will have to configure a global server load balancing site and subnet IP address. And you also need global server load balancing virtual servers. There is a difference between normal virtual servers, because your normal virtual server will be your backend servers in your global server load balancing virtual server. So this is only the part where the metric exchange protocol happens, which is protocol the NetScaler uses to handle out which NetScaler should take the sessions. And yeah, you can configure some different methods. One is least connection and the other one is lowest distance or nearest location. So if you have least connection, yeah, it explains it at itself. So I think I don't want to spend some time on it. I'd like to explain it more in depth. What is GSLB? So please, next slide. GSLB is more DNS services. So the most important thing about global server load balancing is that your NetScaler will be responsible for DNS record, which is, in my example, storefront.company.com. So the NetScaler will answer this record with an IP address and handle this over to the client, and the client will connect to the service, which is a global server load balancing vServer. And this is all the magic about global server load balancing. It's really easy to configure because there are a lot of new good wizards which will configure everything for you, and you only need to have some IP addresses and some DNS records, and that's all. Next slide. So this is how it will work in Azure. So one side is, for example, on premises, one side is in Azure, and you have got your NetScalers. In this example, it is with on-site on premises will run NetScaler global server load balancing and in Azure as well. So if a user connects to storefront.company.com, it will give it will get a public IP address from the NetScaler, which is running an DNS service, and then it will connect to maybe nearest distance or maybe nearest location, something like this. And afterwards, you will connect through the global server load balancing vServer to the load balancing service or to your NetScaler gateway, and the session will be established. So this is how it works. And with it, I can hand over to Christian again, I think.
Thank you, Carson. So another tip from me for you guys is to use the Azure Cost Calculator. Yes, Azure Cost Calculator is the free available web-based calculation program to inventory and calculate your Citrix workload through the Microsoft Azure Cloud. So when you put in the Azure region, smart skill settings, Citrix Cloud Connector, Storefront, NetScaler, and domain controller, for example, you can enter the XenApp user density and the sizing, which is based on the login VSI workload tests, which are provided by login VSI to Citrix. And when you put all the information in, you eventually get back a cost model output, which looks like this. So it's a very nice and detailed diagram where you can see all the costs for running your on-premise environment in Microsoft Azure. And your IT manager would love this, I think. So it gives another best clear view of your workspace in the cloud. So when you are interested in this great calculation tool, just enter in the link at the bottom of this slide, and you get access without any subscription or or anything like that. So now about best practices and considerations. Yeah, my tip for you when you are using on-premise, but also, of course, yeah, workloads in the cloud, Citrix workloads, is to optimize them with the new Citrix Optimizer tool to increase the user density and eventually also the cost of your environment. This is a great tool which is now also stable enough and publicly released since last week. So yeah, great tool. So I encourage you to use it. Another thing is to use the Azure D3 version 2 machine for the lowest TCO and highest user density in Microsoft Azure. As you can see in the graphic, that the D13 version 2 has the highest user density and the lowest cost compared to the other machines. So I advise to use that one for your XenApp machines in Microsoft Azure. And another tip is to measure your distance and latency to Microsoft Azure through AzureSpeed.com, which is a free available web tool to test the connection from your own on-premise environment or data center, your private data center, to the Microsoft Azure cloud to see which one is the nearest and the best location to put your Azure your workloads, your resources in. So yeah, great tool. And another tip is to use Azure Site Recovery to lift and shift your workloads to Microsoft Azure. Azure Site Recovery is normally the disaster recovery replication tool to replicate your on-premise environment to Microsoft Azure, but you can also use it to migrate your on-premise environment to Microsoft Azure without to fill back. So you can replicate, fill over, and then stay in Microsoft Azure. And Microsoft is also using this service, this Azure Site Recovery service, in their new Azure Migrate service, which is announced and released in preview at Ignite during September this year. With that tool, it gives also a good calculation and advice how to migrate your on-premise workloads to Microsoft Azure, which can be physical machines, VMware workloads, and Hyper-V workloads, obviously. So in the know section, which you probably know from my bloggings, is that you can use the Citrix Cloud now also as partner. So when you are a CSE or a CSP, you can also provide different Citrix Cloud workspaces, but also other services to your own customers with an own customer dashboard and a ticket system. So a big improvement. That Citrix Cloud is now also available in Europe. So you can also place your Citrix Cloud environment now in Europe, which is actually the Azure West Europe data center in Amsterdam. And when you register for a Citrix Cloud account at this moment, you get an option screen which looks like this, and you can enter which location you want to place your Citrix Cloud services in, which can be USA or Europe. That machine creation services is the only supported imaging strategy in Microsoft Azure. So no Citrix provisioning services available there. So be aware of that. And there are license trader programs from on-premise license to cloud licenses. So when you just purchased your extended your on-premise licenses, don't think that you end up in another new licensing process. You can migrate them, convert them to cloud licenses. This is only available for the service, for the XenApp and XenDesktop service. So be aware of that. But you can get a great discount to migrate your on-premise environment to Citrix. Citrix encourage you to migrate to the Citrix Cloud, so they provide discounts for that. So a big plus for that for Citrix. And also, when you are an enterprise agreement customer with Microsoft and you have software assurance on your operating system, you can also provide or use the Azure Hybrid Use Benefit Program, which stands for that you don't purchase or don't pay in your infrastructure as a service cost for the operating system anymore. So when you have a software assurance, you already paid for the operating system in the on-premise environment. So when you are using resources in Microsoft Azure, the costs of the operating system are taken away. So, and you get eventually a 40% discount on the Azure resource cost. So make use of that when you are an enterprise agreement with software assurance customer. And another thing is that Citrix Cloud provides a free status monitoring page to monitor all the services from inside the Citrix Cloud, which is available through status.cloud.com, which looks like this. It's a service health dashboard, which is publicly free available for everyone, where you can see where all the services are up, or if there are any issues or something is down, or there are some maintenance jobs, tasks are going on or scheduled for the weekend, for example. You can all see it in the dashboard, and they are now also separately in US and in Europe. So, and also be aware that you also can receive notifications on issues on the Citrix Cloud. Just to push the subscribe button in the upper right corner, and and then you can register your email or telephone number or a Slack channel, for example, to get notifications on outages of the Citrix Cloud. So another interesting thing is that Pluralsight is providing free Azure trainings online at this moment. So one tip from us for you, if you want to know more about Microsoft Azure, please use the Pluralsight training course, which is a 10-hour long training course, which is free. So big plus, and one advice for you to get more familiar with the Microsoft Azure Cloud. And if you are a Citrix partner, you can now also use Citrix Cloud enablement trainings through the enablement training course of Citrix. So, and they are all free available. So if you want to have more hands-on experience, you can now use the enablement training course also for the Citrix Cloud Workspace services, but also other Citrix Cloud services. And of course, all our own blogs. So stay tuned up on our blogs to get updated about the Citrix Cloud Workspace Solutions. And some education and useful links from Smart Skill and Smart Check from Gareth are these. So if you want to be more familiar or want to know more in-depth information about the Smart Tools, please check these links and masterclasses from Citrix. So I would like to try if we can put up the demo, which doesn't showed up during the session of Gareth. So before we hand over to the question and answer, I would like to check if I can put it on. So
Christian, if it doesn't work, we'll send this to everybody who's attended. Yeah.
I have it over here. Can you see it on the screen?
Yep, just about.
Okay, so I will start it.
Okay. So we've spoken about Smart Check. I just want you guys to have some visibility of it. This is going into Smart Check. We can see my site's registered. We can see all the default checks that are under the Perform Check option. We can run them individually, or we can run them all at the same time. So we hit the blue Perform Checks Now button. Smart Check will do its analysis on your site because you've got the agents installed, or if in the cloud solution, it will see it automatically. You see the errors, you can drill down into the errors, you recognize that, oh, there's a problem with the delivery group, this is unavailable for your connections, you can see where the delivery group, which delivery group is affected, and Citrix will also give you a fix recommendation to help you fix the actual problem. So we can see there's problems with the machine catalogs. So we can drill into the machine catalog. We can also see, whoa, a lot of errors there. We've got a VDA in maintenance mode. We've got unregistered VDAs. So now we need to drill down into these errors, and Smart Check will basically tell me again which VDA has the issue. It will offer me a fix recommendation, a nice little link to a blog or to a Citrix article. I can check that out and do my analysis. As mentioned, when I was talking about the smart checks, we can run scheduled checks. So we can choose them to run every day. We can choose every week. We can choose the time. So we can choose all our checks and schedule them at different times or all at once. So I mentioned about the custom checks, which was what I was super excited about. So you access them from the blueprint catalog. We drill down to the bottom. We can see our custom checks here. We can click into the custom checks. I'm choosing the VDA health check. In order to add it, I just click the blue button here, add to smart check. That will now get loaded into my smart check site. So I'll navigate to my smart check site, and under the perform checks options, I should be able to see my custom check is now added. So we can see the VDA health checks. We can drill into that. I can select all failed machines. I can specifically select the VDAs that I want the check to run on. You need to enter your site credentials in order for the analysis to run. So put in your username and your password, hit the Perform Checks Now button, and off you go. So again, it's going to do some analysis. Through me investigating the Smart Check analysis, I know what the issues are. So I've gone to my delivery controller. I've got a machine up in maintenance mode. I turn it off. But it's still unregistered. But the Smart Check analysis has also told me that a service has stopped. So I check my services. I start my Citrix desktop service. I will basically run the performance checks again, just to analyze my site, see what I get, and I should get less errors, and I do. So I drill into the remaining warning under the controllers, and it should be telling me that I need to do a backup of my site DB. That's it.
Oh, great, Gareth. So yeah, let's switch over to the Q&A slides. I see that there are some questions going on at the question chat section of the GoToWebinar console panel. So I see here a question that someone wants to know the link for the Azure Approval Site training. So we will put that all on the blog post that will be on my CUGC tomorrow morning. So all the information and the presentation slide deck will be available. So then you can yeah, search for the link. I see a question from one Skuppen that says, I struggle seeing advantages in having VDAs in the cloud as having so many legacy app and backend servers on premise. What's your opinion on it? So, yeah, you can't use Windows Server 2008 in the Microsoft Azure cloud, but you can use 2008 R2 SP1 and all above. So when your legacy applications are running on that operating system, yeah, Azure is a way to go for you. But if you have 2008 or other legacy applications, yeah, that's one of the struggles that it needs to be solved first to open your gate, your road to the Microsoft Azure cloud. And Azure Site Recovery or the Azure Migrate service definitely helps you understand to follow that path. So that's one advice for me for you. So I also see that we are running out of time. So I see 2 more questions that are interesting will be shared with you guys tomorrow morning. So let's switch over to the competition quiz. And I know that everyone has seen the answer, so it wouldn't be very difficult to get the right answer. But you can win a CUGC t-shirt from Synergy from this year. And this question, I don't going to ask this question. I know that you know this answer. So I made up a new question, and that one is for which workspace solution in the Citrix Cloud is the workspace environment manager available? Please answer the question in the chat field and win the CUGC t-shirt. And do we see some right answers? Stephanie, do you see someone answering the right question? Or
potentially.
I don't see anything going on.
You can't see
okay,
anyone?
I suppose.
Jake was the first one.
Jake was the first one, but it's not the right answer. It's, let me see. Yeah, it's Jay says that's giving the right answer. So Jay says you want the t-shirt. So Stephanie will contact you and hand it over to you to your home address. So.
All right. So Jake's a lucky winner.
Yes. So. You want to close the presentation, Stephanie?
Sure. We can skip over to the other slide. So speaking of T-shirts, you have a chance to design the 2018 T-shirt that will be unveiled at Synergy. And here's a link in the chat for you. We'd love to get your designs. You have until January 26th, and the winner gets the top prize is an Xbox One X, and then we also have some other prizes for the runners-up. All right, and then you can go to the closing slide. Very quickly, I know you all are running short on time. I have a chat message for you with a link to our survey. We'd love to get your feedback from today's presentation. It helps us with future webinars, and I know our presenters love to get your wonderful feedback so they can plan future content as well. So if you get, it's very short, so just take a minute and fill that out for us. And finally, we are getting close to the end of the year, but we do have more user shares and Connect webinars coming up, so we hope to see you on one of those again here soon. Here is another link for you to our current webinar calendar. So check that out. We update it quite frequently, and we're excited about things that are coming in 2018. All right, and I think that does it for us. Like they mentioned, the questions that didn't get answered today, we will answer for you online, and you can check that forum thread that I put out there. You can ask more questions there. I'll make sure that they see it and get back to you. And again, you'll receive a link to the recording tomorrow and a link to the presentation. And with that, I want to thank you guys. Thank you, Carsten, Christian, and Gareth. It was a great presentation. You guys did great, and I appreciate your time today.
No problem. Thank you,
No
Steph.
problem.
Thank you all.
Goodbye.
All right, everybody have a great rest of your day. We'll see you at mycugc.org again soon. Bye.
Bye.